From the rocker killed on stage to the R&B star who tripped and never got up again, the untimely ends met by these 90s musicians prove one thing: that death sometimes arrives in the most unexpected of ways. Jeff Buckley is one of those once-in-a-generation musicians who left us way too soon. After making a name for himself in the Big Apple's club and cafe scenes in the early 90s, Buckley released his first and only album, Grace, in 1994. The record features several gems, including his hauntingly gorgeous and intimate rendition of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, a song that Rolling Stone included on its 2004 list of the greatest songs of all time. Grace proved that Buckley was on his way to becoming a music staple of the decade and beyond, but then on May 29, 1997, Buckley took an impromptu dip in the Mississippi River while waiting for his band to land in Memphis. He was swept up and drowned in the wake of a passing boat. His body was found 6 days later in the water near Beale Street. The singer's death was ruled a tragic accident, leaving countless generations of music fans wondering what might have been.
I don't really need to be remembered. I hope the music's remembered.
The 90s were the golden age of R&B, and at the time, one girl group ruled them all. TLC combined R&B, hip-hop, soul, and pop to achieve massive crossover success with their game-changing albums Crazy Sexy Cool and Fan Mail. The group was made up of Tian T-Boz Watkins, Rosanda Chili Thomas, and Lisa Left Eye Lopes. Lopes is primarily known for rapping on TLC's music, such as the iconic verse at the end of their smash hit Waterfalls. The trio went through a lot during their time as a group, and tensions soon began to grow among them. In 2002, Lopes embarked on a spiritual retreat to Honduras. She was also filming a documentary about the country at the time.
You get to see it from my point of view.
On April 25th that year, Lopes was driving when she lost control of the vehicle and crashed. All of the passengers survived, but Lopes died from her injuries. She was just 30 years old. One particularly noteworthy aspect of her death is the fact that the moments leading up to it were all caught on camera, as the producer for the documentary was riding in the car with the cameras rolling. Some of that footage was used at the end of the 2007 documentary Last Days of Left Eye. Aaliyah was the it girl of the 90s R&B and hip-hop scenes. She scored a record deal at the tender age of 12, and at 15 released the game-changing 1994 album Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. She scored hit after hit in the mid to late 90s, including the Grammy-nominated song Are You That Somebody? And the crossover hit One in a Million. Ever the talented artist, she also made her way to the silver screen, playing Trish O'Day in the action-packed movie Romeo Must Die opposite Jet Li, as well as the unforgiving Queen of the Undead in the sultry vampire fantasy horror flick Queen of the Damned. By August 2001, Aaliyah had cemented herself as a staple in both the R&B world and Hollywood. That month, she headed to the Bahamas to film the music video for Rock the Boat, boarding a plane to return home on August 25th. In a bizarre and devastating turn of events, the overloaded plane crashed shortly after takeoff, killing Aaliyah and 8 other people.
She's a beautiful person inside and out, and we're gonna all miss her deeply.
Aaliyah was only 22 at the time of her death. The 90s was the dominion of heavy metal, and Pantera reigned supreme in the decade's heavy metal scene, with the album Cowboys from Hell skyrocketing them to stardom in 1990. A key part of their sound came from guitarist Dimebag Darrell Abbott, whose heavy riffs and seamless weaving of rhythmic and melodic elements made him one of the best metal guitarists in a generation, if not the best. Abbott helped define Pantera's sound and influenced countless other rockers, including Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist Zakk Wylde and Metallica's James Hetfield. He was also beloved and respected by fans and peers, and his senseless death was a huge gut punch to the rock world. On December 8, 2004, Abbott was playing a show at a nightclub in Columbus, Ohio with Damage playing, his post-Pantera band. During the show, he was shot and killed by a member of the audience. 3 others also died in the attack. The killer was a man named Nathan Gale, a former Marine who was shot and killed by a police officer following his rampage.
He just went crazy and started shooting people.
While we'll never know exactly what drove Gale to kill that night, his mother and friends reported that he had mental health issues and was obsessed with Pantera, even believing that the band ripped off lyrics he himself had written. Commonly known as Selena, Selena Quintanilla Pérez was a Mexican-American singer who rose to fame in the 90s, having fronted her family's band since childhood. Dubbed the Queen of Tejano, Selena was a Latin music powerhouse who blended its traditional sound with modern pop to create a sound all her own. Charismatic, talented, and passionate about her craft, she helped bring Tejano music into the mainstream, and she was truly adored by her fans. By March 1995, Selena was in the prime of her career. She earned a slew of Billboard Latin Music Awards, snagged a Grammy for Best Mexican-American Album for her 1993 album Live, and released her smash hit 4th studio album Amor Prohibido in 1994. Her red-hot career was destined to become hotter. until she was bizarrely gunned down by someone she had once trusted. Yolanda Saldivar was the president of Selena's fan club and eventually managed one of the singer's boutiques in San Antonio. Things went sour when Selena and her family accused Saldivar of embezzling money from both the store and the fan club. Selena agreed to meet Saldivar at a Days Inn in Corpus Christi, Texas on March 31, 1995 to retrieve financial documents that Saldivar still had in her possession. During their confrontation, Saldivar shot Selena in the back of the shoulder, damaging an artery. Selena ran to the lobby for help and identified Saldivar as the shooter before falling to the ground. She later died from her injuries.
She made it clear that that was her best friend. That was her eyes. That was her ears. When she couldn't be there, we were to contact Yolanda.
Saldivar was convicted of Selena's murder and sentenced to life in prison. She will be eligible for parole in March 2025. Buckle up, kids. This is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in the world of classic rock. Richey Edwards was the lyricist and rhythm guitarist of the Manic Street Preachers, a raw and rebellious post-rock band from Wales. Edwards was brilliant and deeply complicated, often struggling with his mental health, alcohol abuse, and self-harm. On February 1, 1995, Edwards left his hotel in London and vanished off the face of the planet. His family declared him legally dead in 2008, and the truth behind his disappearance remains a mystery to this day. That said, a few theories have emerged in the nearly 30 years since his disappearance. Some people think he died by suicide, given the status of his mental health and the fact that his abandoned car was found near a bridge where people had previously taken their lives. Others believe he disappeared of his own accord, with people reportedly spotting him in different locations well after 1995. Edward's sister Rachel told GQ in 2020 that she's still looking for answers in her brother's disappearance. Megadeth was one of the core thrash metal bands of the 80s and 90s. Founded by ex-Metallica guitarist Dave Mustaine, the group combined their aggressive yet melodic sound with pointed social and political lyrics to create some head-turning and head-banging music. Nick Menza laid down the incredible drumming on some of Megadeth's biggest albums, including 1990's Rust in Peace and 1992's Countdown to Extinction. Menza's dynamic, precise, and groovy style set him apart in the 90s metal scene, and he continued to rock with Megadeth until 1998 when he left the band to have knee surgery. Ever the dedicated musician, Menza continued to play music until he literally dropped dead on stage.
I'm not gonna lie about Nick Menza today. Hearing the news, it's pretty rough.
On May 21, 2016, Menza died while performing in Los Angeles with Ohm, his band with former Megadeth guitarist Chris Poland. He was 51 years old. Heavy metal was all the rage in the early to mid-90s, but by the end of the decade, nu metal was sweeping the globe. One of the core bands of that era was Deftones, a nu metal alternative group whose heavy metal roots and experimental vibe made their sound unlike any other. Hits like Be Quiet and Drive Far Away and Change in the House of Flies made them staples in the late 90s and 2000s rock music scene. And Cheng, who played bass, helped define the band's rhythm and groove. Cheng was with Deftones until a terrible car crash ended his life in 2008. In November that year, Cheng's sister was driving them both in Santa Clara, California when they crashed into another car. Cheng was thrown from the vehicle after it rolled several times and sustained serious injuries that left him in a coma for several months. In 2009, he entered a semi-conscious state and over the next few years started to show signs of improvement, but he was still unable to move or speak. Cheng's friends, family, and fans hoped the bassist would pull through and continue to improve, but his health took a turn for the worse in April 2013. At a hospital in Sacramento, he suffered a cardiac arrest and died aged 42. In the late 90s and early 2000s, pop alt-rock band Train made a name for themselves with their catchy hooks and feel-good melodies. They hit the scene with the 1998 single Meet Virginia, but their legacy as pop rock greats was cemented when 2001's Grammy-nominated Drops of Jupiter hit the airwaves. The single shot up to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. One of the musicians responsible for those early mainstream hits was founding member and bassist Charlie Colin. Colin was with the group from 1994 until 2003, when he left the band due to issues with substance abuse. He stayed busy in the music scene after his Train days, however, often playing with a number of other groups. By the spring of 2024, Colin was teaching music as well as making it.
All of my worst moments are nuggets of pure gold as a teacher.
That May, however, Colin was watching his friend's house in Brussels when he slipped and fell in the shower. He died as a result. He was 58. Train posted a touching tribute to Colin on Instagram, gushing about his sweet nature and talent on the bass. A soulful trio signed to Michael Jackson's record label, Brownstone was thick in the 90s R&B boom. The group, consisting of Monica Dobie, Nicole Gilbert, and Charmayne Maxwell, scored a huge hit with 1994's If You Love Me. The tune hit the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and earned the group a Grammy nomination. Not bad for a single from their debut album, right? Maxwell's powerful vocals amplified the trio's soulful sound until the late 90s. More than 15 years later, however, a bizarre freak accident unexpectedly took her life. Maxwell died on February 28, 2015, after falling and cutting her throat on a broken drinking glass. She was just 46 at the time of her death. Troy Gentry was half of the country crooning act Montgomery Gentry, a duo who rose to fame in the late 90s and aughts with their outlaw twang and steadfast southern rock roots. Gentry and his cowboy pal Eddie Montgomery scored big with chart-topping songs such as If You Ever Stop Loving Me and Roll With Me, soon becoming one of the most successful two-piece country acts around. But their success came to an end after one fateful flight. On September 8, 2017, Gentry was on a helicopter tour of Medford, New Jersey, right before Montgomery Gentry was set to play at a nearby airport. Tragically, the helicopter crashed in the woods next to the airport, killing both Gentry and the pilot. Gentry was 50 years old. A report from the National Transportation Safety Board cited pilot error as the source of the fatal crash, stating that the pilot cut the engine too soon as he tried an emergency landing.